Mark, get in the elevator.
Helly!
Get in the elevator!
Judd?
Mr. Scout, you have a good evening.
Will do. Same to you.
While the elevator ascends, Helly is suffocating inside. Unnoticed, it descends once again. Simultaneously, 𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐨𝐧 makes his way to the elevator to leave. When he opens the elevator door, he is shocked by the sight of Helly's hanging body. He quickly tries to lift her up to give her room to breathe. Grainer, who finally notices what is happening through the CCTV, rushes to aid Mark. Together, they manage to get Helly down and lay her on the ground, where she is able to start breathing again. Grainer clears the elevator and tells Mark to get in. With the elevator ascending, Mark switches into his Audi persona, who leaves the building unaware of what just has transpired. The next day, 𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐨𝐧 returns to work and is immediately met by Harmony and Seth as he steps out of the elevator. Harmony informs Mark that Helly is recovering well in the hospital and has not sustained any permanent damage, much to his relief. She also tells him that Helly will be returning to work in a few days and that her Audi still has no plans to resign despite the suicide attempt. Throughout the workday, Mark continues to secretly read Rickon's book, finding inspiration and expanding his ideas about freedom. The book is filled with passages regarding finding one's true self and consistently reminds the reader that they should never allow themselves to be a slave to their job. In her office, Harmony is informed by Grainer that the diagnostic test has confirmed that Petey's implant was reintegrated. Instead of reporting this to the board right away, Harmony instructs Grainer to find out who was responsible for reintegrating the implant, as she wants to provide the board with a complete picture of the situation. As Mark's Audi retrieves his phone from the locker, he sees that Rickon has left him several urgent voice messages. Rickon informs him that Devon is starting to dilate and provides him with directions to the birth center, where the baby will be born. Mark quickly gets in his car and hurriedly drives to the birth center, where he finds Devon and Rickon inside the birth cabin they've rented. Inside the cabin, Devon begins to experience contractions. Rickon, who is rather superstitious, suggests that they should start sharing secrets, as he believes that this will create a more trusting environment for the baby to be born in and speed up the labor. Rickon shares that he feels hurt that Mark hasn't thanked him for the advanced copy of his new book that he left at his doorstep 5 days ago. Surprised, Mark reveals that he doesn't know what Rickon is talking about, as he never saw a book at his doorstep, leading them to assume it must have been stolen. After the contractions have passed, Devon decides to step out for a walk and get some coffee. She goes to the much more luxurious cabin next door and asks the pregnant woman inside, Gabby, if she can borrow some of her coffee. Gabby seems somewhat confused and quiet, yet friendly. She reveals that this is her third baby and his name will be William. Soon after, Devon thanks her for the coffee and leaves. Back inside her cabin, Devon starts having contractions again. This leads Mark to share a secret with her, telling her that he suspects Lumon might be up to something suspicious. Devon tries to ask him for more details, but the contractions get stronger, and she starts going into labor, eventually giving birth to a healthy baby girl who they named Eleanor. When Helly then returns to Lumon, Seth instructs 𝐒𝐿𝐴 on how to communicate with her with kindness and understanding, as they expect her to be disconcerted and possibly depressed. Mark heads to the elevator to welcome Helly. However, as the elevator doors open, he finds her crouched in the corner, seemingly in shock, as she did not expect to still be alive. Later in MDR, Miss Casey approaches Mark and informs him that she has been assigned to monitor Helly's well-being throughout the day. While using the office printer, Irving is surprised to see it producing several paintings depicting a group of Lumon employees wearing O&D badges, engaged in an act of murdering and cannibalizing other employees. Seth quickly approaches Irving and apologizes for the paintings, explaining that they were merely an inside joke between him and Harmony. Irving pretends to believe Seth's explanation, but later approaches Dylan with his concerns that these paintings might be evidence that the horrific stories about the O&D staff are true. In an attempt to save Helly from Miss Casey's prying questions, Mark pretends to drop his coffee, forcing Miss Casey to go to the supply department to replace the damaged office supplies. Mark then convinces Helly to go on a walk with him through the hallways, which she agrees to as it's the only way she can avoid Miss Casey's questions. As they walk, Mark and Helly venture into parts of the floor they've never been before. Suddenly, they hear what sounds like a baby crying. Intrigued, they follow the noise only to find that it was actually a small goat walking through the hallways. They continue to follow the goat to a room where they find a man surrounded by many goats. They watch as the seemingly harmless man lovingly holds a baby goat in his arms and feeds it milk through a baby bottle. Noticing them enter the room, the man starts begging them not to take the goat, as it's not ready yet. Startled by what they just saw, Mark and Helly quickly leave the room and start walking back to MDR. On the way back, Mark expresses that he's glad Helly has joined his department and is willing to uncover Lumon's secrets with her help. As Miss Casey makes her way back to MDR, she is taken aback to find Helly is nowhere to be seen. Dylan and Irving quickly fill her in, explaining that Mark has taken her for a walk through the hallways. Grateful for their assistance, she informs them that she saw Bert pacing by himself in the conference room. Miss Casey quickly sets off in search of Helly and Mark, and eventually comes across them in the hallways. Relief washes over her as she learns that they are both safe and unharmed. They apologize for causing her any distress, which she graciously accepts before accompanying them to their return to MDR. Upon arriving at the conference room, Dylan and Irving are quick to confront Bert about his dishonesty regarding the size of the O&D team. Bert explains himself by revealing that his team is also fearful of MDR, as rumors have been circulating that they are monstrous beings capable of causing harm. Finally, the three of them make their way to O&D, where they discover the same painting that Irving had previously found in the printer. However, this time, the murderous employees depicted in the painting are wearing MDR badges instead of O&D. This leads them to conclude that the paintings and rumors must have been fabricated by Lumon in an attempt to create distrust between the departments and discourage them from communicating with each other.
Excuse me, everyone. I want to introduce you all to Irving and Dylan. They're from MDR. They're friends,